Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. You know, whenever the subject of immigration comes up, and of course it's a subject I've been raising ever since 2004, and I've raised it repeatedly because I felt that opening up the doors in the way that we did was a wholly irresponsible thing to do. But whenever I do it, not only am I attacked and called all sorts of names for even daring to discuss the subject, but I'm told when I make the case about the problem is if you have gone suddenly from a net 30,000 a year to 300,000 a year, it has an impact on housing, it has an impact on whether you can get a doctor's appointment, it makes the roads busier, or whatever I might say on social issues. People say, well, Nigel, even if you are right on that, you have to understand that the economic benefits of mass migration are beyond question. And I've always questioned it. And again, generally taken quite a lot more abuse for doing so. So you could knock me down with a feather when the government's immigration czar, Professor Alan Manning, was appearing yesterday, and I'll come back to the fact that it was yesterday, before the Home Affairs Committee. And he was talking about what the impact of an open door to unskilled EU migrants had been to the UK economy.
First of all, on the labour market, a shift towards making work migration, having a bias towards higher skilled, higher earning migrants, that would act to raise average wages in the UK as a whole, just in a sort of batting average composition effect. Our assessment is that it wouldn't really have a very large effect on the earnings of existing UK residents. Any effect that it does have would probably be to raise wages slightly for lower skilled workers in the UK, but these are fairly modest effects. On the public finances, we would expect that it would lead to an improvement in the public finances, although one should emphasise that these effects are likely to be modest.
An improvement to the public finances if we reduce the level of unskilled migration. Yes, folks, this is the government's immigration czar, Professor Alan Manning, and he's saying that open-door, low-skilled migration since 2004 hasn't really had positive effects and has had negative effects. It has been of no economic benefit to this economy at all. In fact, he says the cost of services provided have been greater than the taxes paid. And that's without the cost of new schools, of new hospitals, of new roads that we've needed through a massive increase in the population in our country. So, folks, my feeling is, at last, at long last, we're beginning to get the truth. But I'm not sure that others will be convinced. I mean, let's take David Cameron on this. You know, when I first dared to raise this as a subject, and by the way, folks, I'm not obsessed with this. When I was elected to the European Parliament in 1999, the word immigration or migration did not even appear on my election literature. But I began this campaign in 2004 when it became clear to me that Blair's estimate that a further 13,000 a year would come to this country was clearly nonsense. Here was Cameron on the stance that I'd taken on LBC with Nick Ferrari way back in 2006.
I mean, UKIP, it's just a sort of, bunch of... they're just trying to make a bit of mischief. As far as I can see...
UKIP is a bunch of what?
Well, fruitcakes and loonies and closet racists, mostly.
Very good, Mr. Cameron. If you dare to even discuss the issue, you're a closet racist. There we are. That was Cameron. And the attempt to shut down any debate on this issue. And, I've been on Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan, for example.
The argument against tightening up immigration is that actually what's happening.
Staff.
You don't keep out just the bad people. You keep out a lot of very good people that we desperately need.
Well, ultimately, if we need nurses or need engineers, we will find them.
Where?
Why are we thinking just about Europe? There's a very big world out there. Although longer term, one of the worst things is why are we not training our own people? difficult, you see, to debate this subject without coming under consistent assault from mainstream media and from politicians. And, of course, in particular, Alistair Campbell, who, of course, was there with Tony Blair when the doors were opened up, not just to the European Union, but actually, in many ways, to the whole world. Here's Campbell and I having a chat on the Daily Politics in 2018.
We were having to bring a lot of immigration and immigrants to do work that white working class people and white middle class people and the indigenous population didn't necessarily want to do. And I think that was tapped into and used.
We never heard that argument before 2004. Actually, what we've done with mass migration of unskilled labour is our productivity levels in the country have gone down. This has not been a net.
But is it unskilled? Why are there shortages of doctors and nurses?
Oh, that is partly our fault, and we should actually feel ashamed.
Right. So it's not all unskilled, is it?
In many cases, we should feel ashamed of taking doctors and nurses from countries that need them even more than we do. So it's a complex debate. It operates at a whole variety of layers. The fact is, I was seen to be pretty much on my own against this from 2004. And again I was told the NHS can't survive. The economic benefits are clear. And here we have finally, all these years later, the government's own immigration czar, Professor Alan Manning, saying there have not been positive benefits from unskilled migration. In fact, there have been negative effects. The truth, I think, is coming out at last. Here is what is remarkable, folks. This statement by him wasn't given today. It was given yesterday to the Home Affairs Committee. But you wouldn't know it, would you? Because if you've been scanning the BBC, you would have seen no mention of it whatsoever. And if you'd gone down to your local shop this morning and come out with a pile of newspapers, you'd have found 63 words in The Sun on it, 282 words in the Daily Mail on it, and everywhere else you wouldn't have seen a dicky bird. And yet, had he said unskilled EU migration has been a great benefit to this country, I promise you folks, front page of the Times, front page of The Guardian. We are still, I think, having a problem, having a proper, honest conversation on this subject in this country. But I've been saying this for years. I'm asking you, do the comments of Alan Manning exonerate what I've been saying since 2004? And if you think, no, Nigel, it's just one person saying this, the evidence is clear. It's been great for Britain. You're an idiot. Well, then, please call me and tell me that I'm completely and utterly wrong. You can do that on 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think it's a fair cop. OK, Nigel, you were right all along, in which case text to 84850. Or maybe you disagree with these findings. Maybe you think, actually, the Tsar has got this wrong and there are other factors we should consider. If that's how you feel, tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And Facebookers, we're live streaming tonight and here from London, and you can comment there too. I'm going to go to Charles in Bagshot and ask him, does the professor exonerate, Charles, what I've been saying?
Not totally. I tell you what, I've come across Eastern European workers, and they're very hard working. They turn up at work. I mean, we had a recent case a few months ago. We're trying to get the toilet fixed. Now, this is just anecdotal, obviously. British guy didn't turn up or couldn't be bothered to turn up. Polish guy turned up straight away. No problems. Now, that's just anecdotal evidence. There's obviously very fine English tradesmen, of course. But I didn't hear... The thing is, we're talking about... I didn't hear one word. You talk about undermining British salaries or wages. I didn't hear one word from you, Nigel, not one word, when under Blair, IT workers from India were brought into the UK and displaced higher qualified UK IT workers by the thousands. Nothing was said. That was all right because they're not fluffy and cuddly. They're IT workers. It doesn't matter. I'm just getting... I take that point. I take that point. Equally, you know, in skilled sectors, if you bring a large number of people in, they will drive prices down. I get that. Absolutely.
I get that, Charles. I understand that. And it probably is not an argument that I did go on, because you can't argue on all fronts at any one time. And by the way, Charles, can I just agree with you on something? A lot of people who have come to this country from Central and Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, have been terrific, have worked their socks off, been honest, and a lot of them have been great people. This is not about saying, you know, one nationality is good, the other's bad.
No.
I've never argued that. I have argued that from Romania and Bulgaria, we've had a particular problem with organised crime, the mafia gangs or whatever. I have argued that. Charles, the point I'm making is, and I'm not against immigration, I'm for immigration. I think it's great that we do it, but we do it properly. The fact is that to have allowed numbers in to the extent that we have has not been... and the social stuff we can argue separately, but I'm going to stick tonight, if I can, to the economics of it. It has not been an economic benefit.
I mean, the thing, Nigel, I would say, if this happens after post-Brexit, we have to reform. Then, if these people are going to leave, we have to reform. We can't have people that are more than able to work, local indigenous people that are more than able to work on benefits indefinitely. We have to reform that and make sure that...
I couldn't agree more, Charles. There are two things we have to do. Number one is stop relying on importing people, whether they're skilled or unskilled, and start training our own engineers, our doctors, our nurses, or whatever. Of course we do. That's investing in the future of our country. And number two, you're quite right. We have to make sure people go to work. My friend, the governor of Mississippi, Phil Brown, who's been on the show before, said when he started his term 7 years ago as governor, I'm going to create lots of jobs in Mississippi, even for people who don't particularly want them. By which he meant he was going to make it much tougher to stay on benefit, and people would have to take jobs. And we are going to have to start thinking, Charles, how we do that. Thank you for your comments and your call. Off to Mark in Palmer's Green. Mark, am I exonerated?
Oh, you are. A very good evening to you.
Good evening.
Well, they've been telling us for years, haven't they, that the low-skilled migration, cheap labour, basically, is good for our economy. And why? Because they do not live in the real world. They don't live in my world. Let me give you a very quick example. I did a central heating job a couple of months ago in a converted garage. It was for there were two families in there. It was like 10 of them all together, Romanian. And while I was doing the job, I noticed these letters from the benefits office lying about. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I spoke to the builder later and I said, what's the story on this job? He said, right. He said, well, there's two families here. He said, the fellas are out working for cash and the women stay at home and they're all on benefits.
Yeah, well, that, of course... I mean, that, of course...
How is that good for our economy?
No, that's very bad for our economy. Although, Mark, there are probably some Brits doing the same thing, so we have to be honest about that. But no, of course that's bad for our economy. But, Mark, isn't it good that at last a government immigration czar starts to tell the truth?
Oh, at last.
At last.
You've seen it. You've seen it for years and years and years. I've seen it for years and years and years. I'm working with some Jamaican fellas at the moment, 4 Jamaican fellas. And they all voted to leave. Why? Because they have been undercut as well.
Yeah, and of course...
So it's nothing to do with race.
No. And a lot of Jamaicans, of course. Mark, I remember the week after Brexit, I stopped at a petrol station in Croydon, and there was a family there, and they all got out of the car to have a selfie. And the mother had a strong Jamaican accent. And she said to me, do you think, Mr. Farage, with Brexit, we can all become friends again? And that's the point about this, isn't it? Actually, we've been pursuing a racist immigration policy where we've discriminated against people, black people, from whether it's Africa or India, in favour of white people from Europe. Not a point of view my critics have perhaps ever thought about. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 6:16 and time for the news headlines with Thomas Watts.
The Christian owners of a bakery in Northern Ireland have won their discrimination appeal in the long-running dispute over a cake with a message supporting gay marriage. The EU's chief Brexit negotiator says a final deal on the terms of the UK's divorce is within reach. A police officer has told an inquest how he tried to resuscitate the Westminster terror attacker outside Parliament last March. The weather, some heavy showers in the West Country this evening, largely dry elsewhere, with a low of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Jay Louise Knight, and there's been an accident on the anti-clockwise M25 not long after the Dartford tunnels. It's shutting a lane at junction 31 for Lakeside. There's another accident on the Surrey stretch, anti-clockwise at 7 for the M23. 2 lanes are blocked with delays back towards Wisley at junction 10. In Bruce Grove, the A10 is closed both ways from Woodside Gardens to Moorfield Road with an accident. And there are still long delays around Poplar after the A13 East India Dock Road was closed out of town at the A12. It has reopened now, though the accident has been cleared. Now, on the tube, earlier problems at Eastcote have left severe delays on the Piccadilly line from Rayners Lane to Uxbridge, but just minor delays on the Metropolitan line now. And for the trains, South Eastern remains suspended from Bromley North to Grove Park.
This is LBC.
When you build your own website with GoDaddy Website Builder, you've got all the tools you need to make your idea real and get yourself noticed. Improve your rank on search engines, reach out to your customers with email marketing, take online appointments, boost your social media presence. And best of all, you can build and edit your site from any device, which means wherever you are right now, you could also be building your website and making your own way. Unless you're driving, in which case you should pull over first. Try Website Builder for free at godaddy.co.uk.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kings and queens, welcome to your Virgin Atlantic flight. The seatbelt sign is off and the show has started. It's always sunny above the clouds. We're in a different world. We're tickling the stratosphere. We're flying at 30,000 feet. I'll be your host, and if you need anything, bing bong me. Now please, sit back and relax, or sit forward and make an origami penguin. It's up to you. Get ready to depart the everyday. Why? Because you're flying with Virgin Atlantic.
Lanes 2 and 3 have reopened between the junction 1 and the roundabout northbound slope southbound.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Stay safe. Stay back. Search Highways England for more information.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you earning between £1,000 and £1,600 per week? No? Well, you could be, with Greyhound Car's 18% commission rate. As part of a pooling group of 45 minicab companies in London, we have high demand and are now offering 18% commission deals for new drivers. We allocate each job within 5 seconds to the nearest available driver, so you spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. Apply today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
You know your business, what keeps you up at night, and what gets you fired up every morning. You know your 5-year plan and that you really want to be there in 2. We know we can help you get there. Barclays now offers unsecured loans of up to £100,000 that can be with you in days or even hours. To apply for a loan that's just right for your business, search Barclays Business Loans. Let's go forward. Subject to status. T's and C's apply. Guarantee may be needed.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
I can scarcely believe it. The government's immigration czar, Professor Alan Manning, says that unlimited low-skilled workers coming from the European Union has had negative effects on the UK economy. Am I exonerated? Before I get back to your calls, just a quick one. We're forever being told by celebrities what they think about politics, what they think about current affairs, as if somehow, because an actor or a singer gives us their view, somehow we will be influenced. Well, Taylor Swift this week broke her silence about her political views, and she said she was in the midterm elections going to support the Democrats. So YouGov did a poll in this. It asked British people if they care about the political views of non-political public figures. Care a lot, stroke a little, 22%. Couldn't give a damn, not at all, not interested, 70%. So can we perhaps please, across the media, see a little less of what Sir Bob Geldof thinks on any particular subject at all, would be my view. OK, back to this question. Have I been exonerated by the government's immigration czar? We are off to Rome in Italy to speak to Andrew, who is a new caller to this show. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening, Mr. Farage. Greetings from Rome.
Hello there.
I wonder if you'd just clarify something for me.
Yes.
Is it correct that your great-grandfather was a German immigrant, into England and was a Huguenot.
Andrew, you may have a slight.
Could you let me finish? Would you let me finish?
No, Andrew. The point of the show is what happens on LBC is what we do is we set a question for the day and we ask the public to debate it so that the views of the public can be heard by other members of the public so that they can make their minds up. Now, if this was Mastermind or This Is Your Life, you'd be fully entitled to come on and ask me about this. But I will say this to you, Andrew, that if you look, and yes, we've had Huguenot migration to this country, genuine refugees. We've had Jewish migration to this country. We've had Ugandan Asian migration to this country. Absolutely. If you look at the total numbers of people that came through all those three waves of migration, that is now dwarfed by what net migration figures have been every single year for the last few years. And Andrew, the point is this, and let me throw this back to you, that since 2001, 5.4 million people is the increase in our population due to immigration. It is, would you not say, rather too much?
19th century, with a Huguenot immigrant coming over to England named Farage, whose great-great-grandson is you. Now, wasn't it lovely of Britain to welcome an unskilled Huguenot into Britain who went on...
Well, Andrew, I think actually the point is they were refugees. There is a slight difference there, isn't there?
Well, actually, my ancestors were Huguenot as well, so perhaps we were related, which is very interesting. We must have a pint. But the point is, there are people who are labelled unskilled who actually be a huge amount of the country. So are they going to be banned?
Well, Andrew, this is not the argument, is it? The argument is we've let too many people in and that it's not been a net economic benefit to the country, and that is an argument I've made for a long time. I've been pretty much on my own in making it, and now the government's immigration czar agrees with me. I mean, does this not to some extent exonerate the points that I've been making?
No, because I'm asking for clarification about your ancestors.
Boring. We're off. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye, Andrew. Have fun in Rome. I mean, we could do it differently, I suppose, and I could just sit here and say, OK, guys, chuck at me what you want, but I'm not sure we get very far. Let's see whether we can get more clarity of debate from Daniel, who's calling from Marylebone. Good evening, Daniel.
Good evening to you. Three quick points. I'll make them very quickly and then I'll let you carry on.
That's fine.
Firstly, in my mind, you are the Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart of our political time.
Get on with it. Second point.
Right now, history will show you that you are right, and you are already, as you can see with the government star, you should feel vindicated. So
I do to some extent, yes.
I do think in the next 10 years this becomes a moot point. The reality of technology and automation, it's going to wipe out 80% of these jobs that we're talking about here anyway. So what you'll be left with is a bunch of people that have moved there on certain jobs, and those jobs don't exist, which means we will then be taking care of their basic living wages.
And this is basically robots taking over jobs of people, yeah?
Not necessarily just robots, but computer and tech. But that being said, if you go back a few years, you will hear Pret a Manger's CEO saying, the reason that you come in and you don't see a single English member of staff in this building is not because we don't want to employ them. They don't want to roll their sleeves up and do the work. Other people are happy to do that, right? So it is good that we've had these people coming in, but why is it that our own Indigenous people don't want to do it? We gave them a culture of welfare where it was more profitable to stay at home and get paid for having babies and relaxing than it was to go to work.
Daniel, I partly agree with that. Could I also say that if we have labour shortages and we need people to come in from overseas to do unskilled jobs, that's fine, provided that they come with their own health insurance and are no burden on our social security system at all. One of the problems has been...
Well, if they're taxpayers, then they should be able to leverage the NHS, in my opinion. But
well, hang on, Daniel. If I go to Australia... I've got to pay in for 4 or 5 years to their tax system before I've got a chance of getting public health care there.
I agree, but that also makes it prohibitive to good people to want to go to Australia. So I think there's a balance between attracting
I tell you what, there are still huge numbers going to Australia every year, even though they make it tough.
For sure. My last quick point would be, you're right. For too long now, it's been too politically incorrect to talk about immigration for no reason. Just as you can't nowadays talk about someone being a guy or a girl. XY chromosomes don't exist anymore. It's now everyone's gender fluid.
Apparently.
By the same token, Yeah, exactly. And by the same token, you can't draw a caricature now without upsetting 50% of the planet. Until we're actually able to have mature conversations, all we will ever have is us spinning circles with the left on semantics.
Well, maybe, Daniel, Professor Alan Manning today has helped us have a grown-up conversation about immigration. Thank you for your call. Oh, Gary says, Farage is banging on about immigration on LBC. No, we hardly ever talk about it. We hardly ever raise the subject. And I tell you what, thank goodness we are debating it, because the rest of mainstream media have turned a virtual blind eye to what was said yesterday. We should talk about it. The question, Nigel, is who is doing all the unskilled work in their own countries? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, Lithuania have lost nearly 25% of their population since 2004. I've driven through the countryside and seen vast tracts of it, literally boarded up. This overnight move to free movement from former communist countries has in a way not actually been very good for either of us. Low skilled, you mean people who do the jobs that most Brits wouldn't and work harder at them than most Brits. Well, I tell you what, Gerard, you do have a point. We do seem to have a certain slight millennial problem with hard work in some cases. Much of this, of course, was down to the fact that wages were driven down so that minimum wage became the maximum wage. It's funny, you know, when people get paid more, they're actually rather more incentivised to go to work. And it's interesting that as the EU migrant numbers have fallen, still way too high, but as they've fallen since the Brexit vote, what we're getting actually is wages going up. I'm going to go to Luke, a new caller from Gravesend. Luke, good evening.
Good evening. Hope you're well. It may be a slight distraction, but I'd just like to ask the question. You raised the point about mainstream media and the difficulty of a sensible conversation. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that the somewhat narcissistic way that you introduced this debate about whether you are vindicated and making it personal about your own triumph, do you feel like that contributes perhaps to the lack of, kind of nuanced and sensible debate, perhaps?
I think, Luke, what I'm trying to do here, by making it personal and making it controversial, I'm looking to get people coming on who don't support me but disagree with me. I'm provoking them to come on and have a real go at me so I can have a proper debate about this. That's why I'm doing it, Luke. And I've done it before in the past on things, and it's actually been quite effective.
I think, yeah, okay, and point taken. I think the other point I'd just like to make is really just around the selection of which experts to follow. Everybody tends to follow the experts who agree with them, but I feel like there is a way too selective process, and there should be some validation behind the points that's given on an accuracy basis.
I tell you what, Luke, I promise you, people in politics say polling's a complete load of old tosh until they get an opinion poll they like, and they do the same with experts, and you're absolutely right about that. However, I would just say in finishing, this is the government's immigration czar, and that's why I think these comments were significant, and I'm stunned they've not been
I think there are other officials who you may have dismissed in the past, and other people do as well. I think we can't be too selective.
Luke, the argument's moving on. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for your call. I get the point. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show at 6:30 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
The Supreme Court has ruled the owners of a bakery did not discriminate against a customer by refusing to make a cake supporting gay marriage. In 2014, Ashers in Belfast told activist Gareth Lee they would not produce icing featuring Sesame Street characters and the logo of campaign group Queerspace. Democratic Unionist MPs who prop up the government are said to be prepared to vote against the budget if the Prime Minister breaks their Brexit red lines. Ahead of a crunch summit in Brussels next week, the DUP has repeated its opposition to any backstop deal that would see Northern Ireland being treated differently to other parts of the UK. A woman who spent £16 million in Harrods over 10 years has been named after becoming the first target of a new anti-corruption law. Zamira Hajiyeva, whose husband was jailed for fraud in Azerbaijan, risks losing her UK property if she can't explain where the money to purchase it came from. LBC weather, some heavy showers in the southwest this evening, spreading across southern England overnight. Elsewhere, quite dry with some cloud and hill fog, a low of 12 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Between 24 and 30 soldiers will now face an investigation by the Army after a short clip shows the soldiers cheering Tommy Robinson. Carl in Orpington on this.
I wonder how the 12,000 plus ethnic minority army feel about this.
How do you know that these 12,000 recruits of whom you speak are all opposed to Tommy Robinson?
Nick, you're talking a load of rubbish as you usually do on these topics, so I'm clearly going to just end the conversation.
No, fair enough. I thought you might.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Give it up for the first timers. The first time buyers having their first cuppa in their first home. That glorious first cup of tea. They're barely in, but the water's boiling in a pan. And now they sit on a box and sip and just take it all in. Ah.
That's the first home feeling. And we can help make it happen for you. Halifax, giving extra to first-time buyers.
Washing machine breakdowns happen when you least expect it, but you often can't see the culprit. In hard water regions, limescale can accumulate undetected in your machine. Now there's Calgon's new 3-in-1 formula. Not only does it protect the machine's internal components against limescale, it also prevents residue deposits and bad odours in each wash. That's why Calgon is recommended by leading washing machine manufacturers Bosch and Whirlpool.
Washing machines live longer with Calgon.
So much confusion. Half-price carbonara with car insurance? Do I want another meal or just a good deal? Confused.com give you £20 free Texaco fuel with your car insurance. A free gift that makes sense? It's that easy. £20 free Texaco fuel with your car insurance. Don't be confused. Be Confused.com. Full T's and C's online. Scottish postcode exceptions and conditions apply. Offer ends 14th of November.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
This is the sound of the Walker's wedding in Oxford. Only a bouquet's throw away from a Holiday Inn hotel. What are you doing this weekend? It all begins at holidayinn.com.
Is your money working as hard as you do? Think about it. While you're grafting away, is your money working too? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. Wealthify is the smart, easy way to start investing. Just say how you want to invest. Cautious, adventurous, somewhere in between? And let Wealthify do the rest. Then keep track of your money on the app. Easy. Isn't it time for you to Wealthify? Download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
For 15 years, I've argued that unlimited, unskilled migration is not a net economic benefit to this country. Everybody's disagreed with me, but at last the government's immigration czar, Professor Sir Alan Manning, seems to agree. Meanwhile, in Brussels, Michel Barnier has been speaking, the European Union's chief negotiator, ahead, of course, of the meeting taking place next Thursday in Brussels when the other 27 heads of state, or at least prime ministers, will be in the room with Mrs May. It's a crucial summit, and Barnier has said a Brexit agreement is within reach. 85 to 88% of the withdrawal agreement has been completed. Very precise, isn't it? They're looking, of course, for a little bit more on Northern Ireland. It looks very much, folks, like there is going to be a deal next week. Those of you that didn't like Chequers, got some bad news for you. This is going to be Chequers minus. The great sellout will begin next week. I should think Jeremy Corbyn is on the ginger ale, rubbing his hands with glee. We're getting much, much closer to a Labour government if Theresa May does not deliver the Brexit that so many Tory voters thought that she would. On other news, we get Sir Amos Morse, head of the National Audit Office, saying that if we were to refuse, for example, to pay the 39 billion divorce bill, that flights might be grounded with Europe. Disaster is just around the corner. Well, I tell you what, have a little look at the financial press today. EU financial sector at risk as derivative deal stalls. Basically, for many financial products, the European Union do 90% of their business in the City of London. Do you really think the flights are going to be grounded when the whole European banking system could be brought to a standstill? Do you know something? However much I might moan about our political class, the civil service are the biggest barrier to change in our country. Right, back to this subject. Was I right to fight my corner on this? Have I been vindicated in many ways by the government's immigration czar? Lisa is a new caller from Belfast.
Oh, hello, Nigel. Thanks for taking my call.
Good evening.
I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with you. The one element that has struck me tonight on my drive home was, in a way, your change of heart with listening to a government paper as opposed to your arguments against them generally. So I'm not saying I disagree with you, but it's just that change of heart you seem to have had, because usually you're disagreeing with government papers who seem to denounce Brexit or talk all the downsides.
Lisa, I take the point, and we had a previous caller from Gravesend before the break who made a similar point, and it's true that anybody that is involved with public affairs or debate will, of course, generally try and choose things that suit them to believe. Yes. But let's put it like this, all right? Mm-hmm. Ever since this happened in 2004, I've been called all the names under the sun by Mr. Blair, by Mr. Cameron, and it goes on. And I wonder whether what you're seeing today is a genuine change of heart, a genuine realisation that actually we've not been facing up to the truth.
But there was a report I saw earlier this week or last week that seemed to suggest that migrants contributed up to £2,000 more a year to the coffers, and generally don't withdraw because they don't stay here long enough to retire and actually take out of the taxes that they've paid in.
This
is to counteract a report.
But Lisa, are you talking about high skilled? Are you talking about low skilled? What are you talking? I mean, what I thought was remarkable, and the reason I did choose to talk about this is, this is the government's immigration czar. I mean, surely the fact that he said this, and he's never said anything like it before, I think it is a significant change of tone, and I suspect what it marks, and I could be, and tell me I'm wrong, but I suspect what it marks is a different debate on this henceforth.
Well, I'm totally in favour of debate, and obviously I'm not necessarily saying I agree with what Mr. Blair did when he did open the doors and allowing so many Eastern Europeans. But then going forward, the Tory government didn't help with removing the migrant fund and elements like that, which seemed to increase the impact on local communities. Lisa, but I don't think that's the fault of the migrants coming in.
Well, hang on. No one's argued that it is. No one's, and in fact, even before, anything was said, right at the start of this process, after the referendum, I said, anyone that's come to this country legally from the European Union should be guaranteed their rights immediately. They should not have even been pawns in the game, because this happened legally. I think the numbers are way too high, but it happened legally. And Lisa, I would put this to you. That a population increase of 5.4 million because of immigration since 2001 is simply too high.
I do agree with you, but I also think consecutive governments should have put in the EU rules when migrants were allowed to come into the country, that they should have registered in the same way that other EU countries do, and it's something that Britain never seemed to step up because it's going to cost money.
Yeah, also our system's different. Our system's different. Mm-hmm. We have a non-contributory welfare system. Lisa, thanks for the call. I'm going to run on. I'm going to go to Steve from Sutton, who says they'll never admit you were right because they've gone too far with their self-righteous, holier-than-thou rubbish. The chickens are coming home to roost. Nigel, very few believe our standard of living is better because of huge immigration. Well, I think, on balance, Vic, that is probably right. And actually, when you look at the polling on this, it really is pretty overwhelming. Thanks for speaking up for the British hands-on workers. Mass immigration was very damaging to their life opportunities. Billy in Glasgow says, Daniel on Facebook says, I'm not sure what non-skilled means. Everything is a skill. The definition is a degree level or equivalent vocational training, although one of the proposals is that going on from here, we would reduce that to A-level standard or equivalent. Let's just see how this government deals with it. I doubt they'll be that robust. I hope I'm wrong. Tina says, time to give our kids a chance at their first jobs. Train our own people. Stop importing cheap labour. Tina, we have got to start investing in our people and in our country. Not because we're against anybody from any other part of the world, but we have a responsibility to look after our own. Marcus says, simple mathematics, mass immigration can't go on. There's only so many houses, hospital beds and school places. Marcus, that's the other argument. That's the argument about the social effects. I think that argument's been won. The change today is we're beginning to discuss the economics of it. Dave is calling from Uxbridge. Hi, Dave.
Hi there, Nigel. I don't know whether you remember about 3 months ago we had a conversation which the immigration czar has just confirmed me to be right in that low-skilled immigration...
Yeah, I do.
Costs more than the tax yield they bring in. If you look at the low skill on national minimum wage, the taxes they're paying each year is between £300 and £500 a year, which it doesn't really cover too many doctor's appointments or definitely not a school place.
And of course entitled, Dave, to a series of in-work benefits, or if they're unfortunate enough to have an accident or get ill, to get free health care as well.
Let's not go on to the benefits, just arguing about the tax benefits from them.
Yep.
Secondly, the immigration czar, I will call him out on the fact that he's expecting the average wage to go up with skilled immigration, because skilled immigration, why do we have a market for it? It's because we don't pay enough. We don't pay enough. That's why our doctors, our nurses, our dentists all go to Australia or abroad to earn more money because it's better. Over here, what we're going to get is that the people are prepared to work at the rates the NHS pay.
Do you think, Dave, there's a point here? Is there a point here that if we're investing as a country in training a doctor, for argument's sake, that they should be indentured? That if we're going to, train them and get them through, that they perhaps owe us 5 or 10 years of service before they can go off and work overseas?
I agree. Take, for example, a nurse.
Yeah.
Why is a nurse going to stay in the UK and have to pay for her own training because it's now considered a degree, whereas she can go abroad and not have to pay anything back? Now, just to say that about the getting people into work, I agree a bit with about the British attitude, I'm not going to work for that. If it was increased, you might work for it. But the other thing is, if you pay a high-value salary, let's take, for example, an MP, I don't see any shortage of candidates for the job. In fact, the job is filled one day every 5 years, and there's normally a dozen applicants.
Oh, there's more than a dozen, Dave. They're queuing up. They're queuing up round the block. I promise you.
They pay $65,000 for that, and yet we're paying newly skilled doctors $23,000. I know who I'd rather see.
All right, Dave, I think we get the point. I'm sure most listeners right now would agree with you. Thank you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here at LBC at 6:45, and time for the news headlines with Thomas Watts.
The EU's chief Brexit negotiator says a final deal on the terms of the UK's divorce is within reach. The Christian owners of a bakery in Northern Ireland have won their discrimination appeal in the long-running dispute over a cake with a message supporting gay marriage. The close protection officer who shot and killed the Westminster terror attacker Khalid Massoud has told an inquest he had no other choice. The weather, some heavy showers in the West Country this evening, largely dry elsewhere with a low of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and the anti-clockwise M25 is really slow from junction 9 at Leatherhead through to 7 at the M23 after an accident which is now on the hard shoulder. There are delays on the Essex stretch anti-clockwise not long after the Dartford tunnels, where all traffic was held at 31 for Lakeside to move another accident to the hard shoulder. That's left delays back on the Kent side. A serious accident in Bruce Grove has shut the A10 both ways near the railway bridge, so between Woodside Gardens and Moorfield Road. And in the centre of town, the earlier demonstration on Parliament Square has finished, but it's left long queues. Now onto the tube, there are minor delays on the Piccadilly line as well as the Metropolitan line, and for the trains, due to a broken down train, South Eastern are suspended from Bromley North to Grove Park.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 8, it's Cross Question with Lord Lawson, former Green Party leader Natalie Bennett, The Telegraph's Camilla Tominey and Labour's Wes Streeting. But first, the LBC News Hour.
Ian Dale on LBC.
The real reason Sleeping Beauty fell asleep was because it was taking so long for the palace to sell, and the handsome prince needed the proceeds to buy their new home with no time to dwell.
I know who can help. Property Rescue. I'll contact them straight away.
So he spoke to their friendly team who took care of every detail. They bought the palace direct with no legal fees to pay. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to solve.
Kids. The older they get, the trickier it can be to find the perfect gift. But by giving NS&I premium bonds, you can give them opportunity. With premium bonds, your child or grandchild can win tax-free prizes up to £1 million. And because we're backed by HM Treasury, every penny you invest stays 100% secure.
Wow!
So for a gift your little ones will appreciate even when they're not so little, give them premium bonds at nsandi.com. NS&I. Safer savings set you free.
Block management? It's a doddle, isn't it? I mean, once you've got budget approval, all you need to do is your service charge invoices,
health and safety regulations paperwork, do the cleaning, the gardening, general maintenance, sort out site inspections, arrange contracts, insurance, emergency representation.
Yes, block management. Such a doddle.
Save time and money and cut down on the stress. For complete block management solutions, just call ABC Estates. ABC will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry.
For complete block management solutions, see abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
At this time of year, give your body nutritional support with Immunace multivitamins. With vitamin D, zinc and selenium, which contribute to the normal function of the immune system. Immunace from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. Available from Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
At Honda, we don't like or. It's only 2 little letters, but it poses one big problem. It makes you choose between one thing or the other. So when we designed the new HR-V, we stopped saying or and started saying and. So now you can have a car that's sleek and spacious, safe and sporty, stylish and practical. With the new HR-V, you can have the best of every world. Visit your local Honda dealer to find out more. Honda, the power of dreams.
Do you have heart disease? Diabetes? Maybe kidney or liver disease? Flu on top of health conditions like these can easily develop into something very serious and land you in hospital. That's why the flu jab is free for you. You need it. So don't put it off. Contact your GP or pharmacist to get your free flu jab now. NHS. We're all here to help you stay well this winter.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
The government's immigration czar says that unlimited, unskilled EU migration has not been good for the economy of this country, and no one wants to talk about it. Have you heard any of our former ministers or prime ministers or government talking on this today? Have you watched it being splashed all over the BBC and the front pages of our newspapers? No, none of it. Well, we're talking about it, and I'm going to go to Alex, a new caller from Canning Town. Good evening, Alex.
Thanks for taking my call.
Not one bit.
So I'm actually Romanian. I'm originally from a small country called Moldova. I came to the UK when I was 17, back in 2010, basically.
This is Alex. Just quickly, this is so the Romanians granted a million citizenships to Moldovans, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah. But historically speaking, we're allowed to. That's not the point of the call, Nigel.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that. Generally speaking, I agree with what you're saying, but I think, generally speaking, that unskilled workers are needed in the UK only if they're going to be skilled in the UK. Because to me, economically, this is what is a viable decision to do. I completely, agree that when it comes to benefits and everything else, those should be controlled, obviously, but it's not a nationality thing. Because everyone will apply for benefits, doesn't matter of their nationality. And the Brexit, obviously, is not a point that will limit the applications for the benefits, generally speaking.
I think it will, Alex. I think it will. I mean, the point is, it's complicated, this, but we've got a non-contributory benefit system, right? And under European law, we had to treat all EU citizens exactly the same as UK citizens. In fact, UK citizens were European citizens. They still are until we leave.
That's right, yeah.
So my point, Alex, is that if we really have a shortage of unskilled labour, that's absolutely no problem at all. We give people work permits of 6 months or a year or whatever it is, but they're not entitled to any of the benefit system. And I think if that had been the case, there'd be a lot less public upset on this issue.
And is this what you're proposing starting for next year, or is this what is happening right now already?
Well, at the moment, there's been no change at all. At the moment, the door is open. If Mrs May gets an agreement next week, there will be no prospect of any change whatsoever until, well, at least the middle end of 2020, and possibly much longer than that. And one of the frustrations, Alex, with this whole debate, and perhaps one of the uncertainties for everybody, is, you have a vote in June of 16. If the government gets their way with a transition period, it'll be at least 5 years from that vote before anything changes. So I would say to you and anybody else, there's nothing to panic about. It isn't going to change very quickly, but I think that it does need to change. And I think, and broadly, you agree with me, yeah?
I mean, generally speaking, only if those labour is going to get the training and everything to get it, integrated into society, obviously, because this is how the society is going to prosper, from my opinion. And I completely disagree with people just, coming and claiming benefits straight away. I don't think that's
absolutely. No, Alex, we're absolutely at one on that. We're absolutely
based on the system we've got right now. That's the problem. That's the problem we've got. But having Brexit coming and all of these things happening, I don't think that's, generally speaking, if you're saying the 5-year transition, and everything, I don't think that's going to limit, generally speaking, for that period, the applications that are going to come in.
Yeah, I'm not saying 5 years transition, although who knows with Theresa May what it's going to be, but 5 years from the vote. Alex, thanks for that very thoughtful call. John is calling from Helsham. John, the government's immigration czar says it's not been an economic benefit. What do you say to that?
Well, I think at last, Nigel, we finally had a statement coming from a government body stating the obvious fact that the mass, uncontrolled allowance of unskilled labour into this country has been nothing other than totally detrimental to the well-being of our society and our economy. And,
well, I never thought, John, and this has been pointed out by a couple of callers, I never thought I'd quote a government immigration czar. So is this a new dawning? Are they finally beginning to see the truth, do you think?
Well, I think the unfortunate facts we have to live with, Nigel, over the last 40-odd years, we have been led by totally incompetent governments, both of Labour and Tory, that has taken us to the present position we're now in, isn't it?
Yeah, but now we've got Mrs May, John, so it's all okay, isn't it?
Well, I really don't think so. To be honest with you, Nigel, I think David Davis, I've got a lot of respect for that man. He's finally put himself on the line, and obviously come out and made a moral stand on where he feels. Maybe if he had David Davis as our Prime Minister, I would have a bit more confidence. But under Theresa May, I really do feel we're going to end up with a totally bum deal.
Just wait for the sellout next week, John. I'll be in Brussels Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week, and we'll be covering it. Thank you. Ahmed is a new caller from Windsor. Good evening, Ahmed.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, is the government immigration czar right about this, in your view?
So I'll give you my quick perspective on this. So I came in as an immigrant myself for the last 10 years. I've always been paying tax. I got married, I got kids. I'm actually paying a higher tax rate now. According to Labour, I probably pay 45% if they come, which is scary. But to that point, I mean, problem with low-skilled immigration is that we end up subsidising it, or subsidising the salaries for the businesses. Because if you, on the lowest scale, you get 30k a year. With the 3 kids, for example, as a family, or 1 kid, well, school costs about 10k per child, apparently. Plus any GP, well, I've got children now, and I can see I always take them to GP every month, at least every 3 months, sometimes emergency. And I sometimes take them into private healthcare, because luckily I can afford that. But if I'm not or unable to afford this, yes, I might be getting 40k and I'm paying 12k or 15k in tax, but I'm claiming back, even if I don't get benefits, I'm getting benefits in terms of health and schooling in an amount of 30k.
So why, Ahmed? And you've just put the case very succinctly that if you've got 3 children, it's going to cost the state $30,000 a year roughly to educate them, and you're paying $5,000 a year in tax, or $4,000 a year in tax, or less. Why is this self-evident truth? Whenever I've tried to raise it, why have I been shouted down and called names? I mean, why has it taken so long for anybody from government to admit this?
Because we haven't got the statistics to prove it. We look at immigration as a one big bucket, and I get counted. You know, me and my wife probably combined over 150k a year salary, or something 160k. So we get combined with the tax we pay with other low-skilled immigration. So maybe on balance, yes, we contribute positively, but it's kind of skewing a lot of the numbers because no one looks at how many people we are supporting that are not working. Like, if I'm only working and my wife is not working, nobody looks at that. Don't count it as 5 people. They count it as
no, as you say, because people that have come from Europe haven't just come on their own. They're able to bring their families as well. And that's absolutely right. Ahmed, help me with this question. Because Mark's just sent me a text and said, no one mentions the problem with the influx of high-skilled immigration. I have a PhD in experience, but it's not enough to get me an entry-level job. So is there a problem with high-skilled immigration as well, in your view?
There is a problem with high-skilled immigration, but sometimes it's... I mean, I come from outside the EU, so I had to get a visa.
Yes.
When we hire now, if we need to hire... I mean, there's a shortage of high-skilled immigration in the UK. 2 reasons. One, we don't have many graduates coming out. We don't have many skilled people.
In the right subjects, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's too costly to hire someone from outside the EU. It will cost, on average, for a 5-year visa, 16k. And you have to pay the upfront, or 8k upfront, which means I'm taking a gamble. So,
well, let's hope, Ahmed. I tell you what, let's hope the government sticks to its word, and we have an immigration policy after Brexit that doesn't discriminate in favour of one part of the world as opposed to another. Ahmed, thank you very much indeed for your call and for your experience. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'll be back tomorrow at 6. Tonight at 10, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next...